Okay, guys, we're going to go through Chapter 11, Section 1, Screencast here to get ready for the next topic. Um, the big thing here is the differences that are going to between the North and the South that are going to increase conflict. The differences are going to be in the way they make money and the way that they live. There's going to be a bunch of times where you're going to need to pause this and write some stuff down. For example, industry versus agriculture. The people in the North make money off industry and business and factories and cities, and the people in the South make money off of the land, their plantations, farms, cotton, tobacco, all kinds of different materials that they grow. That connects with the bottom one. So industry here, as you can see on the screen, connects with politics because politicians in the South are going to favor things that or vote for things that favor agriculture, and politicians in the North are going to vote for things that favor the business side of it. Slavery is still an issue because it's a way of life in the South. Excuse me, and the South hasn't figured out yet that the North's got a lot more room, and the Missouri Compromise might not hold up. The annexation of Texas is a big one, and I think there's some confusion with this. Texas, because we claimed them, was not necessarily a state yet. The South was obviously in favor of adding Texas because it was going to be a slave state, so the North was not, unless they were going to let Texas, the people decide. Now, popular sovereignty, and this is what I'm talking about by letting the people decide. Write this down if you don't understand it. The citizens get to vote on slavery. So if we're talking Texas or Utah or New Mexico or California or whatever, if it's a popular sovereignty state, it means that there's going to be a vote by each eligible citizen on whether or not your state has slavery. Now, as you could tell, this would be a really big conflict for people in each state, especially if you're a border state, which we'll get into in the coming days. So here's what it looks like. The Compromise of 1850 map. So you've got Texas down here, slave state. Okay, and then you've got New Mexico, where the Missouri Compromise line goes right through the middle of that, and California, and then Utah and Oregon are above it. Okay, so we've got a couple issues, and here's what they came up with. And I'm going to go fast, so if you need to pause and write it down, then go ahead. Here were the 5 parts of the Compromise of 1850. California was admitted as a free state, an entirely free state, no vote, nothing, just it's free. The United States government paid Texas $10 million to get rid of their claim to join New Mexico and come with the United States and become a state. The New Mexico territory was divided into 2. So what you were going to have now is New Mexico and Utah were going to be each going to be their own territory. And the reason that they weren't states yet, and if you want to write this down, would be because they didn't have enough people yet. When they became a state, once they became a state, they were going to be under popular sovereignty, where the citizens in Utah and New Mexico were going to vote on whether or not they had slavery. Now, almost all of these things right here are going to please the North and not the South, except for Texas. So what they did to please the South is they toughened the slave trade and fugitive slave. And what that meant was they were going to punish runaway slaves harsher than what they did previously to try to stop slaves from the South running to the North. Okay, so here's what the target says. Analyze the effects. Here were the effects. Way more conflict in the North and South now. Now you had an increased conflict in whether people were going to vote for or against slavery in the popular sovereignty states, which was going to become a huge issue, which we'll talk about tomorrow in class. And there was an increased number of people that captured runaway slaves. So increased number of people that captured runaway slaves because you got a reward for it. So, for example, if you saw a black person in the South and you thought to yourself, I could turn them in as a runaway slave and bring them back to a slave owner and say, hey, is this slave yours? And whether they were or not, that slave owner is going to say yes, because they will get a slave, and the person who turned them in will get a financial reward for it. That would be something you'd want to write down here. So maybe rewind this and write down what I just said. So the fugitive slave law added the number of slaves that were kind of being captured, whether they were or were not runaway slaves, and brought back to the South. And this really angered people in the North. So tomorrow in class, I'll ask you questions on this target and the stuff that we talked, these targets and the stuff that we talked about in class today. So be prepared to answer those, and I will see you tomorrow.